Hi, Shalom. Welcome again to Seekers of Meaning, the podcast arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address. We welcome your comments and suggestions to us at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. We thank you for your time and joining us today for something that promises to be very, very exciting. According to the calendar, we're about a month away from Passover. I think the first Seder is the first week in April. And we wanted to talk a little bit about not the festival itself, but the major component of the festival, and that is the Seder and what goes into the Seder, obviously the Haggadah. And there's no better person right now to talk to than Eileen Levinson, the founder and executive director of Haggadot.com, coming to us from one of the great cities, London, England. So, Eileen, welcome. It's nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Nice to see you too, Richard. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. This is going to be very exciting. I'm very interested to learn about Haggadot.com. And so just for somebody who perhaps isn't aware of what this is, what is Haggadot.com? How did you start it? And why did you start it?
Sure. So Haggadot.com is an online platform that invites Jews of all backgrounds and those who are curious about Judaism to create, personalize, and share their own Passover Haggadah. And we have thousands of resources for users to choose from, and we invite users, our broader community around the world, to upload their own content, whether that's poetry or commentary or artwork or photos, and they can share it with the broader community if they'd like. And so we're really creating an opportunity for people to mix and match from each other's content and take the behavior that so many of us are familiar from growing up, or, our many years of cutting and pasting Haggadot or photocopying and doing it online. And taking this home ritual that is so essential to so many of our core experiences of Judaism, and making it accessible and adaptable for all. And I started the website. We had a very sort of long evolution process. My background is as a graphic designer. I have a Master of Fine Arts in design, and I was at Cal Arts, which is, if you can imagine, the most radical art school with, people skateboarding through the hallways with their dog on a leash and a clothing optional pool. We were really encouraged to imagine, just like think really big about what design can do. And for me, I had a lot of experiences growing up where being Jewish was very important to our family. And yet it didn't always feel like my questions were being answered, that there was a lot of diversity in our community. And, we were Reform, and yet there seemed to be a very clear way of doing Reform Judaism. And, by the time I got to my college years and 20s, I sometimes would say I'm Jewish, but I'm not really Jewish. I'm not that Jewish. And then I just became exposed to a lot of different ways of being Jewish and wanted to really make it my own. And so I was in grad school, and we had the assignment to imagine a future publication. So this was in 2007, 2008, when the internet was really booming. Designers are worried about print dying, and we're all trained to do like beautiful book designs and other print materials. And so what do we do with how is print, a publication going to change? And so I thought about how design for me would be I wanted design to be a tool for collaboration and for storytelling. And how do we make entry points for people to share their stories on a core text? And so naturally I thought about the Haggadah, because that is the place where we all come together to read the core text, but it provides that opportunity for us to improvise and, really tell the story as though we personally came out of Egypt. And so it's not just a nice thing to do, but we're really, to engage in Judaism is to put ourselves in the story and to see others in the story. And so I came up with this proof of concept for Haggadot.com, just designed a few screens, really didn't know very much about web design. And over the years, I started to talk about it ROI community, which is an initiative of the Schusterman Foundation, was started around that time. I got accepted to go into to be a part of ROI, and I shared this idea. And it's really amazing what a supportive community can do. And people saying, offering feedback and figuring out how we get little seed grants here and there to build it. And the first version of the site was online. It was very, very basic in about 2011, 2012. And then the version that you would see, I would normally say that you'd see now, but actually we did just relaunch the website. And so the version that that was live until about last month was actually built in 2014 with some funding from the Jewish New Media Innovation Fund, Natan, Righteous Persons. But again, that was built on a very scrappy, small budget for what we really needed. But it's been amazing to see how the community has really adopted it and made it their own. And to see, we have about, at this point, we have about 600,000 users annually. We have 100,000 folks on our mailing list who are members of the site. We have, I think, about, 110,000 different Haggadahs that people have made. And so, it's been this great, relationship between us using design thinking and technology, but then also adapting with the community as we've seen how people wanted to use it.
So if I'm sitting in my living room someplace, it's a month before Passover, and I look at my collection of Haggadot and they don't speak to me anymore. I don't have art. I don't have a collection. And this is really cool. So how do I do this? I go to haggadot.com, and then what happens? Because the website is very beautiful, it's colorful, but I've never done this before. Suppose I'm a little technologically challenged, as my grandchildren tell me that I am. How do I do this? Walk me through the process of how do I create my own personalized Haggadah?
Sure. So the first thing to know is that we are here to help, and we design for all technological abilities. But you go to the site and you can start browsing. But the best thing to do first is sign up, and you're creating an account, because then when you start browsing, you can click bookmark on any Haggadah that you like, or we call them clips, which is an individual reading or video or little bit that you want to put in your Haggadah. And so you can then we have a tab called Explore Haggadahs and Explore Clips. So if you're a user and you want to explore our library, you go to the Explore Haggadahs tab, and you can see some of our top Haggadahs, whether it's a comedy Haggadah, a Haggadah that we created last year to support the efforts in Ukraine, and to learn also about Ukrainian Jewish community. There's a liberal Haggadah if you are used to a lot of English, a traditional Haggadah if you want a lot of, if you're used to the original Hebrew text. And so once you've been browsing through our Haggadahs and all the pieces of information, you can choose to create a Haggadah. And we make it really easy for you. You don't have to start mixing and matching the content all from scratch. You can start with a template. So you can start with the core Haggadah that we use. It's modified from Jewish Boston. They did a great Haggadah, The Wandering is Over Haggadah. A few years back, they updated it. And if you want to download our Haggadah and find one piece of content to add to it by searching our library, you can do that. Or we have people that can spend 2 to 3 hours on the site really just searching for different keywords, whether it's environmentalism or feminism or aging, and getting content that speaks to that particular issue and relating it to the Passover story, so that your Haggadah can have a very specific theme and speak to the people at your Seder.
And so if I wanted to, if I'm having, let's say, the family together and grandchildren, I want to write something original and put in my grandchildren and my children's names, I can do that. and there's a method that I can send it, click something, and it would appear in the finished product of my Haggadah. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So once you've compiled all of the pieces that you want, you can upload family photos. A lot of people love to do that.
Oh, okay.
You can then choose to preview and export your Haggadah. You can view it as a flip book on screen. And so I know some people aren't comfortable using technology at their Seder, and I absolutely respect that. So you can print it out as a Word document, as a PDF document. We do allow you to print it out as a Word document if you even want to do extra font changes and, pull it up in Word or Google Docs and do extra font changes and colors that are beyond what we have in our software. Or you can really just view it on screen like a flip book and, on your iPad or your tablet and scroll through it. And what's interesting about that is that when you come to a piece of video, you just click on the link and the video will show up in the frame. So it's a real interactive tool. So again, you just choose the method that works best for you. And you can have different people around your table using different methods. Some people might print it out. You can send it to them ahead of time by sending them the link. You could post it on Facebook. And then just tell them, come to your Seder, and this is what we're reading. It also takes the burden off of the host because you don't have to be responsible for buying Haggadahs for every single person at your Seder. You can tell them to either print it themselves or to bring in their own device so that everyone can have it in the way that's most comfortable for them.
So this is probably a very rudimentary question, but as I told you, my grandchildren know that I'm technologically challenged. Suppose I'm very creative and I don't want to do the print Haggadahs. Can I go to your site and create a video Haggadah? Is that possible?
Yes, you actually can. We don't have all of the editing technology into the site. I think what you would do is you would create the video, you might create a series of videos separately, and then you can upload them into different sections of the Haggadah. So there's a couple of interesting examples of that. So I think PJ Library did that, and they collaborated with Shira Klein. She performs as Shir Lala. She does these great songs and for kids. And so there's basically her guiding us through the Haggadah, all in video and broken up section by section. So if you just want to skip to Dayenu, you can skip to Dayenu.
Cool.
The Jewish Emergent Network also did that with various rabbis from Ikar, Sixanai, Romemu, and there's a series of videos. And so what I think is great about that is what we know now is that people learn really differently, right? So some people can read a text and absorb it or read it out loud and, they really digest it. And some people are more auditory learners, and you creating that video Haggadah could be really great for them.
So we're speaking with Eileen Levinson, the founder and executive director of Haggadot.com. While we're with Eileen, and again, thank you very much for joining us, I just want to remind you that are listening or watching that the sponsorships opportunities are available to sponsor future Seekers of Meaning podcasts. And if you'd like some more information about that, just contact me, Rabbi address at jewishsacredaging.com. And if you'd like to make a tax-free donation to help support these podcasts and our work at Jewish Sacred Aging, go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com. Just scroll down to the conveniently located donate button and click on there. Follow the prompts. It's really, really, really easy. And we do appreciate these contributions to help support our work. And also, if you're interested in becoming a sponsor. Eileen, what you're doing is part of this explosion in the creation of personalized ritual across the generations. We're seeing this in rituals in older adults, and we're certainly seeing it in your generation. Talk to me a little bit about why do you think this is happening? What's going on in the community with this explosion and saying, I want to create my own Haggadah. I want to create my own blessing about this. What's your sense?
I think there's so many factors that we can talk about that are contributing to this. I think most recently, COVID. COVID really shook up our lives and forced us to ask deeper questions about how we were living and how we were finding meaning in our lives. And the places that we used to go to and the routines that we had that gave us meaning were no longer as available, or at least in the ways that we knew them. And so, one example is we saw, for example, our engagement in Jewish communities really changing as we couldn't go to the synagogue or go to the Shabbat dinner, but we had to find ways of doing it online, or we had to find ways to practice ritual at home or in small groups outside. And I think that, we have these experiences in our lives when one thing shifts and it causes everything to shift. And of course, COVID was a very big shift. And we're still recovering from that. And so COVID being the most obvious example that we had big questions to ask. We saw people around us getting sick. There was fear, there was anxiety. We needed to cope with it. And the ways that had previously, our coping strategies before COVID were not as available as they were before. But I don't think it started with COVID. I think, we're really what I am. I'd say I'm an older millennial. I'm the young Gen. I'm an Xennial, right? So I'm the youngest Gen X, oldest millennial, and I think that my generation, we became really aware of how complicated our identities were. Or rather, I'd say, I think generations before us were aware, but I know in our generation, we became a lot more vocal about wanting our full selves to be seen and heard and known. And whether that is because of gender or sexual preference or the nuances of race and class and gender privilege. I know for me, that was a real conversation that was happening between me and my peers since I was a teenager. And so for a lot of us, we knew, and even though I am a very, I'd say, female presenting, cis, hetero female, I still felt the ways that being a woman, maybe being a little bit more artistic or creative, didn't always fit in with the norms that I felt in the Jewish community. And I can see how if I were not white and I were not cisgendered or heterosexual, it would be even more pronounced. And so I think my generation, and really the younger generations like Gen Z, I'm really impressed with the ways that they are centering those who have previously been on the margins and bringing them in. And that means that our rituals have to change to accept who we are personally. Similarly, I think that our parents' generation, they're seeing this happen, and it's creating space for them too. So, for an example, the first high holidays of the pandemic, we were thinking about all the ways to do the high holidays at home. How do we take the essence of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, looking back on the previous year, honoring our ancestors and bring that into the home? And so my colleague, Rebecca Missel, developed this idea of doing, now the name is controversial, but it was a home altar. Call it what you want. You can call it, a mindfulness space. I know altar can bring up feelings or can connote sort of Christianity. So I respect if that's not the right term. But, how do you make a space where you can center your attention, be a little bit creative, bring in images of your family, bring in aspects of nature? And when we were creating this, we really thought it was going to be, we were joking around that it was a little bit woo-woo, yeah, right. And so, but what we found, we hosted a webinar, and it was a lot of your generation, Richard. It was a lot so Richard, you and I both know each other through my father-in-law, Mark, And so his wife, Maxine, my mother-in-law, she and her friends were really excited about making this home altar. And I happened to be with them at the time. And so she and I made this home altar together. And it was a really meaningful way for us to, connect and bring in we focused it on the matriarchs of the Pinzer family. And it was a really beautiful experience. So, of course, I have that personal experience of intergenerational ritual making. But we found, just like Maxine, so many of our parents' generation have been hungry for ways to see themselves in Judaism, and we're providing opportunities for that. And I think also that generation was really part of like the Reconstructionist movement, or women that were doing really innovation in Judaism, but now it's becoming broader.
No. There's this. We're seeing. This is why I asked the question, because we're seeing this in the demographic that I work with in Jewish Sacred Aging. Exactly what you're saying from your generation. I need my Judaism to make sense to me in the world in which I'm living. I don't need pediatrics. I need mature, from our perspective, a mature spirituality and a mature response to the things that I'm living with, since I'm living longer and various types of things are happening that nobody ever appreciated or thought. So that's why I wanted to ask. It's very interesting. Thank you for that. And so on your work with Haggadot.com, I would imagine, listening to you, that the pathway for interfaith couples, LGBTQ, trans, Jews of color are all represented on Haggadot.com. Am I correct in that assumption?
I'd say that they are represented, but I have to say that it's still a work in progress for us. I don't think that they are as adequately represented as I'd like them to be, because I think that what we've known, so yes, we make space for diversity, and we have done our best to highlight the voices that are multiracial, interfaith, gender non-binary, queer. And when I say that we don't have enough, what I mean is that I see those communities right now, and the individuals engaging with those communities, as actually being really under-resourced. And so when we are able to find certain organizations that we partner with and individuals where we can help get their content online. But I think that we're asking a lot of them to be able to tell their story. And if I can make a plug for, the us white Jews who might be listening, is like, we need to put more resources into supporting these diverse voices. It's not enough to just ask for their content, but we also need to fund them for their time to create this content.
Eileen, have you gotten? It just occurred to me while we're talking about this. You're creating personalized Haggadot, and it's part of that explosion of personalized. Have you gotten any pushback from the institutional Jewish community, the rabbinate, organizations, who's saying, you're shaking your head yes? So
yes, yeah. So it's happened in so many ways. I also realize that now people assume, I've started to tell my story about how I came to create this more, because I realized people were assuming that I went to Jewish day school, and I was like, I grew up inside the mainstream conservative Jewish establishment. But the fact is, I came a little bit as an outsider. And we joke every year, I get, and now I don't necessarily get the emails. As the team has grown, they get the emails, and I prepare them and I tell them, don't take it personally. But we always get somebody reaching out that what we're doing is too progressive, that we're watering down. Yeah, we're watering down Passover. We are, you are finishing what Hitler started. Yes. No, you're just getting me on a day where I'm feeling, I'm feeling a little more open to sharing. But yeah, what I'm finding is that the institution, when we talk about like federations or the people who are really invested in growing Jewish community, for the most part, they know that this kind of providing these entry points is so essential for like helping people become a part of the Jewish community and helping, Jews around the world still be a thriving people. But yes, we get a certain amount of haters, and we just gotta move on from that.
Oh no, I'm not surprised, which is why I asked the question. But
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that more and more people understand this is part of the the restructuring of the Jewish community, not only in the United States but worldwide. And um, there's no one path, there's no one truth. There are many, many different, and as you were pointing out, the generations approach these things differently. But if you understand Jewish history, which is how we've survived, we've always innovated, we've always adapted, we've always changed. That's how we've survived. So,
Yeah.
kol hakavod to you.
I do feel that it is important to say that I think that we've finally, over the past few years, become more embraced by the real, if we were to say, quote unquote, like the Jewish establishment, because of the
Whatever
amount.
that means.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. Even saying it, I'm worried this clip is going to be used like somewhere. But we've been the people who are really invested in building Jewish community have taken notice and have thrown support behind us, which is really, really great. And so, that is, we did just receive funding from the Jim Josephs Foundation and
Okay,
the
yeah.
Schusterman Foundation and Mandel Foundation. And they're fantastic partners in how we build this vision to take this core concept of DIY Judaism that really comes out of making your own Haggadah, and how we expand that to all aspects of Jewish life.
So before we start running out of time, I want to pursue one more thing with you. You are a pioneer in all this, and with Haggadot.com. But you mentioned this before before we started the show. There's a new enterprise. There's a new iteration coming with you. This recustom, a rebranding. It's not. If I'm not mistaken, it's not replacing Haggadot.com, but it's sort of like. Would I be correct in saying it's the next generation? It's the next iteration of your creativity. So walk me through, what is recustom.com?
Yeah. So to be transparent, we have had a little bit of a branding challenge the past half decade or so. We knew that there was potential in Haggadot.com to expand to other rituals, but our core audience was at Passover. As we became a 501c3, we needed to have a name, and that name was Custom and Craft Jewish Rituals. That never really caught on. And now that we're in a position to really expand with robust technology, we've been going through a really fascinating rebranding stage. And our new name is Recustom, a name to our old name, but also to our ability to customize our own rituals and traditions. And we're really and Recustom is a community of meaning and care to help you make ritual your own and welcome whatever life brings. And this core model of using templates and a core structure to a ritual that we provide, whether that is, a wedding ceremony or a divorce ceremony or, a holiday structure or daily rituals, we provide the core template. And we give you options to mix and match content so that it feels meaningful to you. And I should say also that on Haggadot.com, there's a feature where you can collaborate. So you can invite your Seder guests or your friends to make a Haggadah with you and to, exchange your content. And what we've heard from our community is that this idea of collaborating is really exciting and meaningful. And people want to collaborate with others on the site and get to know other like-minded Jews and find other organizations and other events. So on recustom.com, we partner with a number of organizations who we see as the expert in that particular content area. Because while we are the designers and we know how to build the structure, there's so many voices that we want to lift up in the Jewish community and feature their content, to essentially be the curators in all content areas. So a couple of the areas that we're going to be launching later this year is, obviously, we're very interested in aging and the community on this podcast, and how do we provide more rituals for the years that we have now, living healthier, active lives. How do we provide rituals for all the different ways that we start families that maybe aren't as simple as man and woman having a natural conception, but it could be same-sex couples. It could include IVF. It could include all of the challenges that could happen. So that path to parenthood area we're going to also be launching later this year. And we're also thinking about family stories and how do we mix and match content to weave together our stories of just how we came to wherever we are now in our Jewish journey, and what our family traditions look like. So we're really excited. We really see Recustom as an opportunity to grow, and we hope that as it provides an opportunity for more people to bring ritual into their lives, so we can provide inspiration. And we could also build this big Jewish library where we're seeing all the ways that Judaism is changing and growing around the world.
I have to ask you this question because I can see in my mind's eye. We have colleagues who listen or watch these podcasts, and I can just see some of my colleagues who are in congregations, their eyes like lighting up and saying, "Wait a minute! One of our chief holds, if that's the right word, it's probably not the right word, our bar and bat mitzvah, and we have a structure. Okay, you mean to tell me that the Horowitz family can then go to recustom.com and create their own personalized bat mitzvah ceremony? What does that do to their membership at Temple Whoopi?" So my question is, and I'm sure you'll get some of those emails. So my question is, do you think it would be possible, because this is going to be really, really exciting and a little bit out there, that you would go to the synagogues, the denomination, like the rabbinic organization, say, look, you may not have the capacity to, or the time, especially smaller congregations, and the staff to work. If you get like the Horowitz family who wants to create their own more personalized within the context of, we'll help you do that. Is that a possibility?
Richard, have you read our strategic plan? Because that is absolutely in there. So, and that actually is a great example of how we can work hand in hand with synagogues. So instead of this online experience replacing in-person Jewish life or our traditional institutions, it's an opportunity to actually get people more engaged in our institutions and provide more opportunities for personalization without necessarily putting more work on the clergy or the ritual committee, right? They can be essentially the curators for their community or the guides and provide templates, and then allow their community to use our technology based on their curations to make their own ceremonies. So it's great seeing your eyes light up, because that is exactly the reaction I want from people. I do want to say that the bar mitzvah section is limited at this point, and so this is a growing. The site is like a growing organism, and we need the community to keep working with us to add more content and help fill out those areas.
So, I mean, this is look. I know some of my colleagues or some people, they saying, "Oh, this is way too much." But I think I want to congratulate you. I think this is a glimpse again into different pathways, and I think if the synagogue community really sits down with you, they could see this as a real partnership, a real creative partnership. And I would hope that over the course of the next few years, they would bring you to the CCAR convention and the rabbinic conventions of the conservative movement and the Reconstructionists and all the others who are training colleagues and saying, look, this is an opportunity, because more and more, by the way, more and more of our younger colleagues are totally fluent, of your generation, totally fluent in technology. So it seemed to me this is a very, very interesting evolution that's going to be taking place. So keep me informed. This is really fun. Eileen, thank you very much. This has been just been fun to talk with you, and I'm very happy that you're doing this. And real fast, if Haggadah.com, spell it, because there's about maybe a million different ways of spelling Haggadah. Well, how do I get to the website?
HAGGADOT.com.
Eileen Levinson, the founder and executive director of Haggadah.com, and soon to be evolving Recustom.com. Thank you very, very much for joining us today from home in London. Say hello to the Evening Standard for me, and again, have a pint of Guinness on us at Jewish Sacred Aging. We really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time, and continued good luck, and keep in touch. I'm sure we have some things to work on together.
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, thanks, Richard, and happy Passover.
Oh yes, Chag Sameach, and enjoy very much, and say hello to your family for. To all of you, thank you very much for joining us on today's edition of Seekers of Meaning, the podcast and TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. A reminder that we appreciate your comments to Rabbi address at jewishsacredaging.com. And again, if you'd like to make that tax-free donation, go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com, click on the donate button, and just follow the prompts. We appreciate your time, we really do. And we want to give a shout out to our producer, Steve Lubetkin, because these podcasts are produced at the studios of Lubetkin Media Companies in beautiful Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Thank you again for joining us. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next edition of Seekers of Meaning. Until that time, stay safe, everybody, stay healthy, and be kind to one another. Shalom.